thanks for gabbing Aloha America with me, dudes. If you find my content helpful, I hope to be creating a lot more and a lot more frequently. I just get bogged down in the editing, so if any of y'all are an editor or know an editor out there that could make this stuff go smoothly, I can talk into a camera all dang day. But beyond that, please like, share, and subscribe. Because I'm trying to create a community of conversation here, and I take screenshots of tweets so I can talk about them later. And I'm, demservative on Twitter. I try to give people good information about what's happening in the world. And the more people talking to more people that we have in this, the better it works. So really, mahalo, thank you for gabbing aloha. As y'all know, you know which candidates I'm repping if you've been watching this channel at all. But I've got some news for the week. Let's get this out there. So first, we have Elizabeth Warren backs up on Medicare for All officially. She's now on a slow 3-year rollout plan to vaguely, sorta, maybe eventually get to what Bernie can just say, this is what we're doing. Interesting how that works. I'm just gonna say it right now. We need a single payer option. She's promoting a public option, and a public option, as the dudes at Hard Lens Media say, is a trap. And you can go watch their video if you want to find out why that's the case. But another thing that Warren has done in the past week is she's now considering UBI. About 2-3 months after Tulsi was considering UBI, Tulsi now still doesn't have the policy actually written on her website, but I can tell you right now what it's going to be. It's going to be the plan that will literally ensure ending hunger in America, which is what Yang's UBI ought to have been, but he didn't have the guts to champion spending an extra less than 1% on his UBI to ensure that literally no American goes hungry. So this is Tulsi's UBI. In addition to also addressing the kid herders, and that's with a D or a T, they aren't really talked about in any of Yang's 169 policies or over 40 hours of listening to him talk, any Q&As, or even his answers to Amnesty International, or 7 of my direct emails asking him, could you please just make a statement saying you don't support kid herders? He won't do it, publicly or privately. Fantastic, dude. You're losing voters over this at this point. And what do you think happens when you give universal basic income to people who trade human beings like cattle? Not good things. Not good things. But that's another issue. Now Elizabeth Warren is saying, I'm considering UBI too. Tulsi's UBI is the best UBI because it will ensure that nobody goes hungry in America. Get this. Yang's almost good at math, but he's not. So UBI costs, food stamps cost less than 1%, or about 1% right now of what a universal basic income is going to cost in this country. Currently, it costs about 1%. And you can imagine there are some people who, when getting a universal basic income, would go, I don't need food stamps. They're a hassle. You got to jump through a lot of hoops. They're not worth very much, and they're kind of embarrassing to use. I'd rather just get my UBI and live with that, and I'm stoked. So at this point, we've got a fraction of a percent of what UBI costs to give people food stamps. And food stamps are going to feed, that single mom with 3 kids under 18 who won't be collecting UBI. She might need food stamps to make sure her kids don't go hungry. So for most people, yeah, UBI is great. They don't need anything else. We're set. I'm chilling with a UBI. But the fact of the matter is, a universal basic income, look at those 3 words, universal basic income, should give everyone in the country a $12,000 a year raise to their income. Not everyone except the people who have already demonstrated that they have a lack of ability to care for themselves, to provide for themselves. That doesn't make sense. That is not humanity first. That's not good math. And when it costs less than 1% of a UBI to ensure that literally no American in this country goes hungry, that is humanity first. And that's what the Tulsi UBI is going to rep. I will bet people money on it. Warren is now considering UBI, and I can tell you it's not because Yang's been repping it this whole time. It's because at this point, she realizes she needs to do something to put some fire under her campaign, and she needs to take some wind out of Tulsi's sails. it's not because Andrew Yang's been repping UBI from the beginning. I mean, to a certain degree it is. That's why UBI is on the stage, and that's why Tulsi has been brave enough to start talking about it too. But the timing is not insignificant. And Warren needed the boost. She needs some reason to be better than Bernie, because the fact that she's a woman doesn't erase the fact that she's a liar. Or the fact that she waffles and is a corporatist. But, there's this really great quote in this book I read by Mike Lofgren. It's called The Deep State. But the book, the quote was from Elizabeth Warren talking to this Larry something. I don't remember his last name, but this Larry guy. And Larry said, "All right, Liz, you can either be an outsider or an insider. Outsiders get to say what they want, criticize whoever they want, but insiders don't listen to them and they smear them." He didn't say they smear them, but he says they don't take their opinion seriously. Or you can be an insider, you get access to a lot of people, and insiders respect your opinion, but you can't criticize other insiders. And we all know which one Warren picked. When you hear that quote, you just know which one Warren picked. And I'm very confident that I know which one Yang picked too, because when you look at it, when you Google Andrew Yang, you don't get the smear articles. You get a lot of good information. You get a lot of glowing reports. Every time he goes on any show, people help him talk about his UBI. They talk about his UBI when he's not there to Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. Like, it's amazing how much free press he's getting. At this point, MSNBC is intentionally keeping him off their graphics and then issuing retractions within a few hours, so the Yang Gang gets to say, "Look at how censored we are," while at the same time he's still on MSNBC and getting, verbose apologies of people saying, "We're sorry we took you off." Like, it is crazy how much the Yang media blackout has been helping how does calling him John Yang, the Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month, how does that hurt his campaign in any way? It's more memorable than his everyday campaign plug where he just says, "Universal basic income, I'm running for president, my name's Andrew Yang, I'm a philanthropist, I made my money on Wall Street and worked for medical tech companies, and I want to reunify the press." Well, he doesn't say that, but if he did, no one would vote for him. Anyway, the other big thing that's happening in news this week is in the Pete Buttigieg campaign. So I've been keeping my finger to the wind and kind of noticing when things shift. I noticed sort of the shift out of Warren's sails a couple weeks ago when Bernie... I just watched a video of pre-debate coverage from The Hill where they were discussing how all the candidates fear Tulsi Gabbard coming after them. And that was pretty cool, because, realistically, it's true. She could literally call out any one of them for basically supporting the same thing. I think she's probably going to go after Andrew Yang to a certain degree for supporting reunify the press policy, at least I hope. But the interviewer that was talking to the Hill crew, Crystal and Sagar, I don't remember her name, but I've seen her a few times. She's one of the last neocons out there, and I think now all y'all should know who I'm talking about. But this gal was saying that, first of all, she made up a few lies about Andrew Yang again, which once again supports my thesis that he is not an outside candidate, that all of the anchors are promoting him to Tulsi and Bernie-crats. In interviews with Bernie and Tulsi, about 50% of the time you hear one of the other interviewers bring up, "Oh, have you heard about Andrew Yang's UBI? Or there's this thing that Andrew Yang's doing." And it's just like, what are you doing? You don't ask people about Tulsi when you're not interviewing Tulsi. You don't ask people about Bernie when you're not interviewing Bernie. But she said that Yang doesn't want to replace the welfare state. He wants to add on top of the welfare state. And I'd like to point out that he didn't he entered the race on exactly that. He wants to exactly replace the welfare state. And when people pointed out that it's kind of messed up to give the people that already depend on government assistance less of a raise than everyone else in the society, he changed some of that. But he's still not letting you stack food stamps on top of universal basic income. And let's look at this. Food stamps currently cost about 1% of what a UBI costs. And if you have a universal basic income plus the ability for extra support for food, for, let's say, if you have 3 kids under 18 that you need to feed, you can basically have a policy for a fraction of 1% of a UBI, because you have to imagine some people, once they start getting a UBI, are going to say, hell with food stamps. But the few people that say, no, I really need that extra money for food, need it for food. You get me? You get me? That's humanity first, and that's good math. For less than 1%, you're telling me that the policy to literally ensure that no one goes hungry in America, you say you can't pass that through Congress, Yang? I'm sorry, but no. No. But, that's a nitpicky thing. But it is a lie that was being told about him by one of our other correspondents, because they don't know what Yang's actual policy is. And then the other thing they said was that Elizabeth Warren jumped onto the UBI train because they're hoping that that's going to give her, or she's hoping that that's going to give her the fraction of, the percentage that Yang doesn't get in Iowa to bump her up in the polls. And I think that that's probably pretty dang accurate, except the Yang gang's hopefully already on board with the Tulsi train for their plan B, because she's just better in every way and has been repping UBI for a few months now. But isn't it interesting? The second that Warren says, I'd consider UBI in answer to one question once, it's now all over the news cycle. Tulsi's been saying, I'm considering UBI, I'm looking into UBI, I'm going to promote a UBI, and here's what it looks like, and it's going to ensure that everybody is fed for 3 months now. And it wasn't until she said it on the debate stage that anyone was like, hey, she's on the UBI train too. And then, what, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later? Well, okay, just before the next debate later, but still, Warren jumps on. And it's not because Yang's been repping it this whole time, it's because Tulsi just started repping it, and probably because she's calculating and thinking, well, if Tulsi's gaining momentum and Yang now needs a math pack to keep up and is trying to shut up any trolls that tell people that we can't support reunify the press policy and there's a better UBI gal on the block, so either Yang needs to step up his game as far as actually talking about media big tech censorship and not just making a big tech board nominated by big tech companies to decide what truth is and get Americans agreeing on facts again, unless he steps up his game on this and maybe makes one statement denouncing human trafficking in 169 policies, 50 hours of interviews, 3 Q&As with human rights organizations, and silence in response to 7 direct emails to the campaign, and 7 months of tweeting saying, hey, could you please talk about human trafficking just once? At this point, all I can say is there's a better UBI gal on the block than Andrew Yang, so he needs to step up his game or he is losing his fans. And Warren sees that change in the winds and goes, well, there's a good, maybe 2% of 3% of 5% of Iowa that I can probably pick up by saying that I support UBI too, for those Iowans that haven't heard of Tulsi Gabbard but know Elizabeth Warren, and now knows, well, Elizabeth Warren, she's just like Bernie Sanders, right? Except now she's Bernie Sanders that also supports a UBI? That's so cool. I love her. Neither of them are for single-payer Medicare, but let's ignore that fact. Tulsi Gabbard is for single-payer Medicare for all and ending wars. Water is life. The OFF Act is actionable legislation to end fossil fuel subsidies, fracking, and offshore drilling. And she's not going to cut power to anyone's house to do it. She's not going to promote a carbon tax to do it. She is going to bring about a green energy economy, an economy based around getting people access to energy. In the world. We're not even talking US, we're talking worldwide. Trying to get people access to energy within 15 years. It's ambitious, but it's possible. We have the technology. We just need to get our heads out of our butts and recognize that rolling that technology out instead of dripping it out is more profitable for every society, even if it's not more profitable for the people who own the patents. All right, guys, enjoy your debate today. And, as an astute journalist paying attention to these sort of things, I can't help but notice. I can't help but notice that the same bots that have been heading me off at the pass and trying to convince people that it's not a big deal that Andrew Yang doesn't talk about child things and horribleness and wants to reunify the press, I'm sure he'll switch to Tulsi Paul. Get this, because it's relevant to this video that I'm currently in the middle of editing while I tweet. I'm on Twitter trying to get Yang Gang members to recognize that reunify the press is a dangerous policy and it promotes, kid trading, or at the very least enables kid trading. And I post a thread that, links things together very nicely, talks about, has some Yang policy, has some talks with Yang supporters, has my talk of my history of spending 8 months trying to make people aware of this issue. And his response is question mark on one thread. On another thread, he posts 3 memes and says, well, clearly I've wasted my time here. And on the third thread, because I posted my various versions of these screenshots to try to get my message out there on whichever thread people might happen to pick up and read from this conversation, because I found it to be a good way to make sure that your message rings home when dealing with trolls that like to post 6 responses to your one with memes and whatnot. Not necessarily responding to all the memes, but responding to the responses that need responding to. Especially when they try to divert in one direction. You're like, wait, but I said 3 things here, and you responded to this one and not the end of this whole thing, so the rest of these are now going to be in your drop down, so I'm just going to repost this over here. Anyway, then I said that so they said something that I'd heard a million times before, which is, Yang's going to take care of this, he'll make us shareholders of our data, to which I responded with a screenshot that said, from 2 weeks ago, me addressing this exact issue, being like, I don't care if you say you're going to make me shareholders of my data, that's not the same thing as addressing censorship. To which they responded, question mark, how is my response programmed? And I said, well, it's the same response I've dealt with for weeks, and also you just kind of responded to me by posted a bunch of memes followed by, how is my response programmed? And I'm just like, well, for one thing, you just like blurt 4 things that are vaguely irrelevant to the actual conversation every time you respond to me. That's a little ironic. Then on one of my other posts, they say, oh, you misspelled statement, it's statment, and I'm just like, you're going to go after me for spelling errors when I'm talking about human trafficking and free speech here. Great! So, this is what we're dealing with as far as the hired Yang trolls that are probably why his campaign now needs a math pack to keep his grassroots going. The bottom line is, it seems that Yang's campaign, instead of taking criticism like people claim he does, is more inclined to mound on and deny criticism, which doesn't bode well when he has 169 policies that don't talk about censorship or the human traffic it enables. You see, a funny thing happens when you start tweeting to Yang Gangers about his need to address big tech censorship and not remain silent on child chillers. Most real, rational human beings who are able to read something and not just react and respond to something will look at it and go, oh, yeah, that's pretty important. I guess I should probably address that. But most of the people that I talk to on Twitter don't fall in that category. Most of them probably are bots and or people paid to head me off at the pass because for 7 months they've been thick-headedly pretending they don't understand that trafficking is important. Or this time, oh yeah, I know that's important, but I'm sure Yang will change. And 6 months later, they're still just saying the same thing. But bottom line, rational, respectful, responsible voters and human beings naturally have a pretty distinct response to this. There is only one response to this. I mean, you know that there are 2 UBI candidates, one of whom was not even repping UBI in his 2014 book, so I've been repping UBI longer than Andrew Yang has, so you can't tell me that he's the only one who can get the job done, because Tulsi's UBI is going to do the math better and ensure that literally no American goes hungry for just less than 1% more, I might add. That's some good math. That's humanity first. When you bring up these issues to Yang Gang, instead of saying, oh yeah, I should probably talk to Yang about that, that's kind of messed up, you're making a pretty good point, they make excuses. When there's a better candidate on the stage, Americans don't like to hear excuses. So, Yang Gang, I'm just going to ask you very politely to pressure your candidate. This is politics. This is what we do. It's not that I'm trying to shiv your campaign in the back and, hamstring Yang's ability to become president. I'm trying to make sure that the only way he becomes president is if he reps policies that Americans can and should vote for. Because if he wants to reunify the press, I won't vote for him. And if you want a UBI, you should vote for the candidate that wants to free Assange and have free speech, not reunify the press. Anyway, here's some more clips. He won't address his apparently misogynist issues in his campaign either, according to this fine lady Lee over here. But that's a whole different issue. I don't claim to know more information about that. But if you'd like to know more information, here's a few screenshots from the thread. Bottom line is, it seems that Yang's campaign, instead of taking criticism like people claim he does, is more inclined to mound on and deny criticism, which doesn't bode well when he has 169 policies that don't talk about censorship or the human traffic it enables. So, if you change those policies, if you want to actually be outspoken about big tech and not just outspoken about making us shareholders of our data, then maybe I'll consider you a serious candidate. But right now, Tulsi's polling better than you because Tulsi's for the truth. And I see no reason not to vote for a better UBI candidate. With a better UBI, in fact, because her UBI does the math. Anyway, if you want to prove me wrong, Yang, now's your chance. This is the time in your campaign where you get to decide whether I want to keep running or whether I want to die on the hill of defending and remaining silent, silently consenting to people peddling. That's your choice, dude. I'm going to support the better UBI candidate that has not lied once in her entire campaign, but America, you do you. America, you do you. America, you do you. Do you. Do you. Do you. Do you. I'm going to support the better UBI candidate that has not lied once in her entire campaign, but do you. Do you. Do you.
America, you do you.
UBI candidate that has not lied once in her entire campaign, but
America, you do you.
Wants to reunify the press. I'm sure he'll switch to Tulsi policy later. These trolls that have been saying this to me for 8 months now, and I'm kind of surprised I haven't blocked them, but I guess it's good for me because now I'm seeing things that they're posting on that I wouldn't otherwise. Most of them have blocked me because, quite frankly, they can't stand up to my logic, but the few that don't are now good intelligence information sources for me, and I just sort of sit back and watch and take my screenshots. But now those same trolls are retweeting posts from Pete Buttigieg supporters who are vocally supporting Andrew Yang and his media blackout and think it's really messed up what they're doing to candidate Andrew Yang, but I'm a Pete Buttigieg supporter. And I'm just sitting here going, I didn't see a whole lot of this a week ago. Now I'm seeing content of people walking through crowds of Yang Gang in yellow shirts, and I'm seeing posts like this, and I'm seeing all these videos of lame Pete supporters. It's just, I don't know. It seems almost like they're saying, hey, Pete supporters, if any of y'all are actually out there besides our inflated polls, you should go look at the Yang Gang now, because they're doing a better job. And look at how much they're blacking out Andrew Yang. He wasn't in a graphic until MSNBC retracted it like a couple hours later and said, sorry, we didn't include him, but the Yang Gang trolls continued to promote the wave of things saying, look at how much they're censoring our candidate, Yang Gang blackout, Yang Gang blackout, Yang Gang blackout.
The facts that I think are useful to them.
I mean, after the very first debate, when Andrew Yang didn't manage to get a word in edgewise, he said, it's okay, I was expecting this, we're just going to use this in our campaign, we're going to triumph, we're going to, use the fact that they censor me to promote me, because all you need to know is that there's an Asian man running for president who's going to give you $1,000 a month. Ignore the fact that I want to reunify the press and let the tech companies do what they want. Oh boy. I don't know how much they're paying attention to me in particular. Hopefully not much. I have the universal shield of them not paying attention to me because the only people who watch me like me, and they share with people who will hopefully like me as well, and anyone else won't be paying too much attention, and I'm hoping that energy keeps going around, man. Choo choo. Anyway, in name of every power you might potentially believe in. Amen. I laugh, but I take this very seriously. I do. I'm a jovial person, and I take being polyspiritual very seriously. And I will talk to you in whatever terms you would like me to talk to you in terms of spirituality and religion, but I personally believe that a nice blend of several of them coming to the universal truths that we've all come to understand timelessly throughout the eons is kind of the way to go. And I'm doing my best to learn all the different good books and to decide what parts of them I can accept and what parts of them I think are, were written by man and not by God's timeless compassion. Anyway, that's another issue for another day. But bottom line, I have more screenshots, so there'll be another one coming up in a couple weeks that hopefully will continue to elucidate this fight. Thanks for gabbing Aloha America with me, dudes. If you find my content helpful, I hope to be creating a lot more and a lot more frequently. I just get bogged down in the editing, so if any of y'all are an editor or know an editor out there that could make this stuff go smoothly, I can talk into a camera all dang day. But beyond that, please like, share, and subscribe. Because I'm trying to create a community of conversation here, and I take screenshots of tweets so I can talk about them later. And I'm, conservative on Twitter. I try to give people good information about what's happening in the world. And the more people talking to more people that we have in this, the better it works. So, really, mahalo, thank you for gabbing aloha. Thank you for gabbing. Aloha, America. Oh, don't let them skeptical Skeksis steal your essence, my dudes. I love you. Thanks for joining the family.